how do you reinvent an entire class, an entire clan of vampires to modernize them and make them fit with a brand new edition? I guess that's what we're going to see when they release the companion guide for 5th edition Vampire, because they've announced that we will see Tzimisce, Salubri and Ravnos all given to us like in a really neat bundle for free December 2020. And I have some ideas about what they might do, how they might do it, and what I really hope, and just the general stuff that you will be able to get when this arrives. And some of this, there's so many things here. The Tzimisce are flesh shapers. They are the clan that has the most connection with that kind of Dracula archetype of strength, nobility, power, passion, and the ownership, the taking of things for your own and your own ends. And I really look forward to how they do the vicissitude powers, their main, most notable abilities, which are just being able to like change the shape of a person's body. And there's so much in this. In previous editions, what they did was do it from level 1, you could change your own appearance. Level 2, you could change other people's flesh. Level 3, it was people's bones. And like 5th edition has a very, very different style of allowing people to create the narrative with the abilities they're using than that. So it's less of a tiered system, more of a what can you do in this moment with this power. And I would say, I hope if they do provide us with the abilities as a whole new discipline, I have a feeling that they might change some stuff to use the amalgam rules that they've created, where if you've got 2 disciplines that have kind of a crossover point, for instance, there's one of Auspex and Obfuscate, where somewhere in the middle, if you have the requisite levels in both powers, you can hide a building. With the Tzimisce, they are a clan described by the creative lead Justin Achille as hoarding dragons, which is an interesting new kind of overarching concept for the clan, where they want stuff. They are passionate, they have this nobility to them like the Ventru and the Toreador, but it is to their own ends. I really like this idea, because one thing that I really kind of enjoy when I create Tzimisce NPCs, you can, this is a spoiler by the way, but if you want to see my take on Salubri and Tzimisce lore, just watch Leech. Go here, watch Leech, that's my take. It's a 6-episode thing, really, really good. I guess the way that I would and have modernized it for 5th edition Vampire, but seeing it officially supported will be great. But the idea that they are so deeply connected with a place or a thing as a clan is something that I wanted to explore. So seeing them describe them as like hoarding dragons that want things for their own, they just take and control them, is fascinating to me, because originally their clan bane was they had to sleep on some of the soil from their homeland, which is a fascinating piece of flavor for a character. But I think making it more deeply integrating them with a place and an objective is far more interesting to me than just you got to sleep on some soil. In doing that, I wonder how they'll change them and their abilities. So they do have animalism and auspex, and if they don't have vicissitude as a whole new thing, they might have dominate, or they might have protean, and a combination of protean and auspex or animalism would be really fascinating, because then the then they would be able to affect others with Protean, where the idea behind Protean is that you can become more bestial or change your own physical appearance by growing claws or eyes that can see in the dark, or just straight up bursting into mist, or an animal. That's really cool, and being able to use that on other people with these combination powers, I think will really enhance what has already been laid down. Simplifying the system by having every single ability in the core book is great, and really streamlines it in some nice ways. And you can change the flavor on the claws ability to be like a spur of bone bursts out of your arm and you slice people up with it, and that's really cool and horror styled. But where it might be more interesting is to see them have an entire new range of abilities, because with each discipline that they introduce, there'll be like between 8 and 10 entirely new abilities, whereas if they make them combinations between 2 disciplines, it's more likely to be like 1 or 2 or 3, which is nice, amazing, and really cool that they've integrated these new abilities and powers into the game. But, you know, as many more cool things as possible, please, right? That's what we all want. And I did think that it was telling that they described the Ravnos abilities as chemistry, which is illusions and stuff, as an entire new discipline instead of the combinations. So I think that will be very, very cool. Because while you could do the Ravnos thing as a combination between obfuscate instead of chemistry and something, what do they have, fortitude or animalism? I think that would be a cool combination between those things, but just building on the flavor of these new clans by giving them their own unique abilities that are not generally able to be accessed by any other clan is powerful to cement them as their own thing, whereas everyone else tends to have a little bit of overlap. It's nice to be a little bit unique. You know, you want that ability where it's so unlikely that anyone else will be able to access it that you're the person to go to for that. So I like that. I like it as an idea, and I'm fascinated to see how they introduce these Tzimisce and their new origins and the place that they will have in vampire society. The sect that they come from, the Sabbat, is getting its own new sect book. Don't know when that's coming out, but we will see how the Beckoning, for instance, will have affected the Tzimisce. The Second Inquisition have supposedly destroyed vast numbers of the Sabbat, and that includes most of the Tzimisce as they stood. So where they are now, lower in number perhaps, maybe they've changed their tactics to be more infiltratey or more violent, or they've focused somewhere else. Maybe they have taken the opportunity of the Beckoning, where elder vampires are being called away to the Middle East to like kill them and eat them and take their power for themselves. And so there are these like giant, powerful Diablerist blood gods out there who have absorbed so many old vampires that they're a force to be reckoned with on their own. So that's an interesting idea. It's also going to be fascinating to see how they integrate Tzimisce with the convictions and touchstone system. I don't think you really need to adapt it all that much to allow people to mess with people's physical appearance, but I do want to see if they have anything special for that, because they do tend to be a little less humanity based, like interested in mortals, or at least that is the classical way. If they introduce some new ideas, I think it will be to allow, as a player, a little more sympathy for mortals, for the character itself, so you're not like, I'm just some inhumane monster, stab, 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 murder hobo all the way. That's less interesting than creating a flawed, sympathetic character who is part of a clan but may not necessarily be part of the evil, in massive, heavy air quotes, sect of vampires. All vampires are evil, they're all cursed, they're all horrific. But having a core of sympathy makes the personal horror much more compelling, because when you drink blood to survive, there's a lot of wiggle room in other sectors of character, like their interpersonal connections, to make them much more interesting to play as well as to watch other people play. So that's going to be fascinating. As for the lore and the beckoning, something I'm interested to see is the Ravnos, because they supposedly don't have a progenitor vampire, an antediluvian. Zephythasura, I think is how you pronounce it. Zephythasura was destroyed by a giant laser beam from space, and lots of other vampires and mages tried to take them down in the Week of Nightmares. And what I understand currently from reading the available 5th edition lore is that many Ravnos are considered caitiff, so clanless. And whether they're going to integrate that, maybe that's one of the many half-truths that are available to play with in as a GM in your chronicle, is an interesting insight into where they might be taking the grander lore and story. So, do the Ravnos with no antediluvian, no first vampire in their line, still experience the beckoning? That's a big question, because one of the theories of why all these old vampires are being called away from their preferred places, the places they want to and have spent a lot of time investing in and working in to like control in some way, are they being called away by the progenitors of their bloodline? The first vampires, maybe it's something else, who knows? And whether the Ravnos is a very fascinating insight into what may be causing that. I think the most interesting choice is yes. Yes, they still are. But why? Is Zephythasura still around? Is he fully defeated? Is it something else? Giving those questions to game masters and storytellers will allow them for their brains to just go, wow, possibilities. I think it's far more interesting. Like the Hecata as a clan of necromancers not experiencing it is fascinating, because they deal with death and they have a power over their own lives in some sense, and they've created their own clan essentially by combining many other bloodlines. Whereas the others don't have that. Didn't have that necessity to do that, and they don't have this new outlook, and they haven't had this massive shift. So the Ravnos will be an interesting little tidbit for that. I also like their ability, chemistry, to create illusions, not only in a visual, auditory sense, but also trick people's senses in in all sorts of ways. People have senses of touch, of senses of balance. There's just saying that they have control over that, and the Justin and Kelly implied that you would be able to make it feel like there's ants crawling under people's skin. That's so like classic horror, and I love it. So control over other people's senses would be cool, and maybe that would be achievable by creating amalgams, like I said, between obfuscate and things. Because if they are going with this new archetype, this new stereotype of the Ravnos as tricksters, they will have a new bane, a new kind of style to them that avoids previous mistakes that the lore has made in terms of stereotyping. And I think it would be cool because they're talking about these classic like monkey, Loki, Hanuman, trickster archetypes that would be really fun to mess around with. Like, it's not necessary for them to like achieve anything by it, but like just messing with people is always fun in roleplay. And actually, I think that's something I feel with these three clans. There's a lot of overlap because they did mention about the Tzimisce that they don't care whether they win or lose, just that they controlled something and got something for themselves. So I like that. I think it's really powerful. They have chemistry, animalism, and fortitude, the Ravnos clan, and yeah, you can do a lot with that. There's some really interesting abilities. If they change it, I think that would be good as well, because you don't want too many overlaps between very specific clans, and you want to make sure that they have different flavors to them. So I'm looking forward to seeing what abilities and stuff they will be given with this new book. Last but very, very much not least, Salubri. Now, I read Beckett's Jihad Diary and wasn't before that very interested in Salubri, but with the destruction of their clan, with their low numbers, they have had to become adept at hiding, adept at integrating themselves into places and either hiding who they are or just, I guess, becoming vampire hermits maybe, and being hunted by the Tremere clan for their power, for their blood, for the fact that they're the only people alive that remember the crimes of the Tremere clan is really interesting to me, because the idea of a diaspora of people that have had genocide happen to them and their people is a really interesting story that you can tell. And the Salubri are often seen as healers or menders, and they definitely mentioned that you can not only heal physical wounds, but also emotional wounds. So taking away someone's emotions of sadness, perhaps, sounds like a really nice thing, because the Salubri are often seen as like the paladins. They're the healers. They are the ones who fight the hardest against their vampiric curses. They fight against their vampiric compulsions. But on the flip side, taking away someone's emotions, unless it's absolutely in their best interest, is horribly manipulative. And I love that for a horror story. If you say take away, like I said, someone's happiness or sadness, that's not a good thing if that person needs to work through grief, because you artificially, you forcefully remove that from them. And if their grandma just died, they need to feel sadness because of they losing someone they love, right? Right? So that has the potential to be really messed up in interesting ways, and I'm looking forward to seeing where they go with it. They, as a clan, have Obia or Valoran as their kind of ability to remove people's wounds or sadness, or see how people are feeling. I think it's connected with like seeing the worst in people, like their sins, their regrets, often in previous editions. So I don't know whether they're going to integrate that into the new one. But they also have fortitude and auspex, and a combination of auspex and presence. If they don't create an Obia discipline, would be fascinating to me. Or perhaps because of their little story interplay with the Tremere, maybe what they have is blood sorcery. That would be fascinating. Them being able to control the blood of other people would fit right in with controlling emotions and blood and resonance, because that's a massive system in 5th edition. The emotional resonance of people's blood, being able to change that is powerful. Outstar actually mentioned her ability that she was using in a playtest to try and heal a Tzimisce's compulsion. They were turning someone into a cube, apparently, and they were trying to stop them from doing that by healing their vampiric compulsion to presumably change stuff. I really like the compulsion mechanic, by the way. So having like an extra bane as such and an extra roleplay cue is very interesting to me, and I am interested to see what clan-specific ones are introduced with these new ones. So that's the clan stuff, but there's also all sorts of interesting announcements. Like they were talking about consent rules, the sensitivity writers that they hired. I'm looking at my notes here. They've announced a Sabbat sect guide. They're going to introduce mortals and ghouls to the game. There's going to be rules to play as a mortal and a ghoul, and those things sort of already existed. You could like make a vampire without the powers. It's not that interesting. But if you want to play through a story of someone getting embraced into being a vampire or hunting vampires, that's really cool to me. And providing space for people to do that and official support, very, very cool. And also ghouls. Being fed blood gives you a level 1 power in the core rulebook, but elaborating on that, how you might be able to get more powers, how you might be able to maybe make deals with the vampires that you're serving is very interesting. So I think that will be a great addition, and will definitely require the use of the consent rules, which is always useful for any table that you play at. I think it will be foundational to make sure that everyone, when you're going in and you're like talking about abuse, when you're talking about changing the shape of a person's body, when you're talking about being addicted to the blood of either an NPC or another player, you need to be able to know the rules and the contract that you all make when you get together and play a game, to be able to go, hold on, in this moment I am uncomfortable, let's take a step back. Or just knowing and communicating with your table that this is freaking me out and I love it, let's do more. So those boundaries and things being discussed more frequently in role-playing books is my kink. Yes, sure. And to that end, they were talking about sensitivity writers. I think probably part of the reason that these clans were left so long and late in the support for the 5th edition is probably because of the issues that they bring up. Tzimisce can change the shape of people's bodies. That and Tzimisce characters like Sasha Vikos exist, who are essentially trans. That brings up trans issues. That brings up body dysmorphia issues that need to be handled sensitively, and so that everyone can go, I love this clan, I want to play as this clan, and I want to be able to deal with specific situations that I am uncomfortable with, well, and let everyone know in the group that these areas need to be avoided, or this specific situation needs to be avoided. And how they talk about in the book is important, because the way that you describe powers, the way that you describe characters will inspire people to play that way. So if they get it right, if they talk to people properly, I am so interested to see how they write about that stuff, how it comes across. And the Ravnos as well had in the past issues with stereotyping Romanese and stuff like that. That was very just uncomfortable to read sometimes. So, and probably perpetuated those stereotypes unfairly. So that's going to be really good to see how they handle that. I'm fascinated to play as these clans. I am in fact planning a game with the Beckoning podcast lot. If you haven't seen it, that's Huddy von Schland, that's the Primogen Salubri cat. We are going to be planning a chronicle that hopefully includes some of these new rules and characters. So look forward to that. I think the only other thing that I really, really want to mention is the coterie rules. Pardon me. Ooh, had a hiccup there. The coterie rules. New merits. People have been asking for new merits for absolutely ever, because in the core rulebook there are some, they cover all sorts of interesting stuff, but when you're looking for like that special thing, that one special thing that makes you different as a vampire, merits are where it's at. And being able to use more of those, and being able specifically to use more of those to the benefit of the other player characters, is a really good idea. It gives you more reason to work together. It gives you more reason to go to another player character and say, hey, Toreador, you have access to literally every whitelist for every club in the city. We need to get into this place. Can you get us in? They're like, hell yeah, I got you. Let's go in there and do the thing. I think that's perfect. Like, if you are, these are not official, so I don't know what that's going to be in there, but I have a wish list of, like, if you're a gangrel, then you have a name that's recognizable by other gangrel. If you're a Malkavian, your group has a kind of oracle ancient vampires say something about what they're going to do in the future, and everyone knows them because of that. There's like Tremere giving access to the chantry, like the library of ancient occult knowledge is really cool. And then there's like Thin Bloods being able to give out word on the street for like different rumors that are going on, or access to mortals that know what a vampire is but aren't hunters. They're just sympathetic to the vampiric condition and are able to help you in some way. I think that's something that can provide interesting stuff for you to do as roleplay, and reasons to stick together as a vampire group when you're all like, I want the things for myself. Power, power, power. Rawr, rawr, rawr. Bite, bite, bite. There's new books coming. It's really good to see it. We've seen like the Chicago folios and the new stuff from Onyx Path, like Let the Streets Run Red, which are chronicle starters and inspiration, and it's been so fascinating to read through those. I think they're really good, but like big juicy chunks of new vampire clan stuff, gimme. That's really nice to see now that they have got new partners in Renegade Games. So that's what I'm most excited about, and if you're excited about that too, let me know what you want to see from this companion book, like what Tzimisce, Salubri, Ravnos character you want to make, or like how you want the powers to be introduced, or like what you're going to do with your coterie rules and merits. I would love to hear your ideas, because you are all so creative and inspiring, and I love reading through them. And maybe one day I'll make a compilation video of some of my favorite comments like that. But anyway, if you are interested in more vampire, more role playing, and chronicles and stuff like that, subscribe, because I love having you here. And if you want to stick around, that'd be great. But until next time, thanks for watching. I'll catch you later.